Today's guest says that being a dad is the single most important job in the world, and your kids deserve to have the best version of you, regardless of how challenging it can be. But what if you're dealing with divorce and you're experiencing fear, frustration, anxiety, and more? You know you need something, but you don't know exactly what. Hanna is a divorce coach and helps his clients through and beyond the divorce experience by helping them gain clarity and a definite plan forward. And when it comes to helping people going through a divorce, being a magician is a very good thing. Hi, this is Bob Poole. Welcome to the Water Cooler Hangout. For over 40 years, I've been helping people like you grow and prosper. Please join me and my guest as we share real-life stories about sales, marketing, creativity, and leadership. Need help in moving to the next level? Find out how others have done it by listening to the Water Cooler Hangout. Hi everyone, Bob Poole here, and I'm here today with Hanna. Tank is a divorce coach. How you doing today, Tank?
I'm doing great, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a pleasure. I have to ask right away. So what the heck is a divorce coach?
It's a coach who helps people through divorce before, during, or after. It's a pretty traumatic experience. And through my own experience and others around me that I've been helping, it's just it's one of those things that if you have some additional help, nobody knows what to expect. So I have created some stuff to help people get through one of the most traumatic experiences of their life, trying to minimize the damage to themselves, especially their kids.
Yeah. So I guess to be a divorce coach, you have to be divorced at some point, huh? Is that
I would think it helps. I think so, yeah.
Okay. I could qualify. So yeah, I just found it interesting. And I also, let's talk about your name, Tank.
Sure.
Is that really your name?
It is. It's my real middle name. I do have a first name, which is John, but that's kind of common. But I do have two older brothers, Frank and Hank. And so Frank, Hank, and Tank has just been how we've been known in our neighborhoods ever since we've been growing up and all the way through till now. So.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I think I'd like to meet your parents.
Yeah, we can get them on another broadcast sometime.
So you're in Arizona.
That is correct. Yes.
All right. Right before we got on the air here, I was telling Tank that it was 6 or 7 degrees when I woke up this morning here, and he's sitting in Scottsdale. So, and you can't see him here because we're looking at each other on Zoom, but he's sitting there with, it looks like a sweatshirt on or a sweater or something.
Well, yeah, it's like 60 degrees outside, and that's chilly for me.
Freezing, yes.
How do you bite people do it in single digits? I'll never understand.
No. So I was looking at your resume and background, and I see you kind of started your career as a professional magician.
Yes. I actually got into magic performing in high school. I had a buddy who was, had some classes together and we were hanging out one day and he showed me this amazing trick where he just called my name and I looked up and there was a dollar bill kind of floating in the middle of the room. It kind of blew my mind. I was just standing there, mouth ajar, and he just kind of unfolds it and hands me the dollar bill and I'm looking at it and he asked me, he's like, "Hey, do you want to know how I did it?" I said, "Absolutely not." Like, it was so mind blowing. Like, I just loved that feeling and realized, wow, if I can help other people get that feeling of awe and amazement. And so I started working with him and we started doing some shows and I basically put myself through college doing magic for, corporate events and professionals. So yeah, that was a fun way to get into business.
Yeah, no, that is fun. So you did corporate kind of stuff, huh? That's interesting.
Yeah, I know a lot of people think when you think magic, you think kids shows, but kids are an entirely different audience and it takes a lot of work. So if you ever meet a kids magician, just give them some thanks because they are the true workers of this industry. Going up for, I did one show that was a end of alimony party. And this was all a bunch of professionals and they had some decent money and it was one in the fancy part of town. And they were the easiest to entertain, I'll say, because they had this very specific way of thinking. And if you sidestep outside of that, you can do some pretty amazing things. Kids, on the other hand, they believe everything is magical and everything is possible. and they're ruthless. Let's just call it. They're ruthless. So I went with the easier route, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I've seen kids in action with magicians. I actually, I don't know how many years ago now, probably about sometime in the 80s. I was doing a lot of speaking at the time. So I happened to be in, excuse me, just a little cough there. I happened to be in Arizona, as a matter of fact, in your backyard somewhere, and at a session there. And during the session, a guy who was also partaking in it, he made some kind of a presentation, but he started his presentation by doing some magic. And it was kind of cool stuff. He had that long needle through a balloon kind of thing.
Sure.
And he had a couple of things. And I thought, that's cool. It's kind of a nice way. I did a lot of workshops and seminars, and I'm thinking, maybe I should learn a little bit of magic, and I could actually, open some workshops that way. So on the way back, by luck, I happened to be in a car with him, and we're going to the airport. Same guy.
Oh, cool.
So I introduced myself, and I said, I'd like to learn how to do, what you do. Do you have any suggestions on where I could, get some instruction or something? Now, I was living in Pittsburgh at the time. It was before the divorce. Anyways, so I was living in Pittsburgh, and guy's name was Dave Richardson was his name. Still is, hopefully. I haven't seen him in years. So Dave says, well, there's a really good magician in Pittsburgh. He said, and he's also a member of National Speakers Association. And he said, so are you. So am I. So are you. He said, why don't you just give him a call? And he said, he'll give you some tips or something. Just see if you can come over. He'll share some stuff with you. I said, okay. So I call the guy up, and really nice guy. He says, yeah. He lived like 20 minutes away from me. He said, yeah, come on over. We set a date a couple days away. He says, come on over. So I go over and sit down in his kind of a family room, and he just starts to talk, and his wife comes and says, that call you've been waiting for is on the phone for you. And he says, okay. He says, give me a minute. He says, I might be a few minutes. He said, here, take this. He says, take a look at these. And he grabbed some like scrapbooks, and he handed them to me. Okay. And he left, and he went in the other room. So I opened the scrapbook up, and the first thing was a picture of him sitting with Johnny Carson doing magic. Okay.
Okay.
And then that's
impressive.
Then the next picture I see is there was a show back then called That's Incredible, I think was the name of the show.
Oh, sure.
He was on that show, and I'm flipping through these pictures, and I'm like, what the heck have I gotten myself into here? I mean, this guy is like obviously world-class something. And there's another picture with Johnny Carson, all these, famous people, and then pictures of him in corporate settings with thousands of people around him. And I'm looking for a way out the door. I'm like, how can I just sort of apologize? So anyways, he came back out about then. Very nice. And he said, he started to sit down. I said, just excuse me just a minute. I said, I have to apologize. I am really sorry. I said, I had no idea that you were a professional magician of this caliber. I said, I'm really sorry, and I shouldn't be here. I don't know anything. I said, I had been practicing a few tricks, and he's like, yeah, no, don't worry. And I said, yeah, you and Johnny Carson. He says, yeah, that's who the phone call just was. I had to go.
Oh my goodness.
So wow. I'm like, all right. So he says, well, go ahead. He says, show me a couple of things. What are you doing? Show me some stuff, So I'm like, I had a thing, and you've done magic. So this was the coin kind of thing with the, hidden coin, and you change it into another coin kind of thing.
Sure.
So I did that. And he said, yeah, that's not bad. He says, let me show you, how you can improve it though, So anyways, his name is Paul Gertner. And
gotcha.
Paul Gertner is one. And I also found out while I was there in that scrapbook was that there's an organization called IBM, which is the International Brotherhood of Magicians.
Yes.
And every year they would have like a shootout of Monte Carlo where the best in the world would go, the best magicians, and they would, present to other magicians, and it was a shootout to see who was the best. And Paul had won, I don't know how many years in a row for, table sleight of hand magic, close up magic. In fact, he retired. He just says, okay, I won't compete anymore. And, he's the best in the world at the, at least that's what everyone says. I just happen to see.
Yeah, he's an amazing performer. Most recently, he's been on that show, Penn and Teller Fool Us, a few times. And I met him a long time ago, but I don't think he would remember me, but he is one of the most kindest, gentlest souls. And he's a master at his craft. Like, he is definitely top shelf. So that's amazing that you're sitting down with him. That's just a cool story. I love that.
Yeah, it was kind of scary. But what was really great, you mentioned corporate magic. That's what he did. He had a company called Magic Core then, and he did himself and some other magicians that they would go out and they would take a corporate message and build magic around it, and then go to the big trade shows and perform magic at the trade shows, which brought hundreds and hundreds of people around the booth. That's what you could have back then. If you had drones, you could have put a drone up in the air and you'd have seen everyone was there around him. But while he was doing that, he was delivering the message the company wanted delivered in magic. So just tremendous guy. So that was what he did. And I had a software company at the time, and so I hired him. I said,
oh, nice.
Yeah. So we did the first show in New Orleans. I don't know. We did 2 or 3 shows together, at least 2, maybe 3. I can remember being with him, and what's nice, he would come the day before and spend time with my people and do some stuff, with some of the guests and parties. If he had a cocktail party, no one knew who he was.
Right.
He's so unassuming looking. I mean, he just looks like he could be a professor, right? It's exactly.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So he would come in with all these PhDs. I had a lot of PhD professors at the time, and I figured he was just one of the crowd. The next thing you know, he's doing some crazy card thing that just has people, shaking their heads. And we'd walk around New Orleans and he'd do street magic. And it was like, just great stuff. So I didn't mean to make this all about Paul Gardner, but
hey, man, he's a master. I love it. I got no problem. I love talking magic too. So that's great.
So what happened then? So why did you give up magic?
Well, great question. I was doing it and I was starting to build some steam. I was a big fish in a little pond. I was doing pretty well in my local area, and the option was to keep doing that and kind of stay at a certain level or try and grow and expand. But it was about that time that I also got married. I had an instant family because my then wife had a little one that I ended up adopting, which was my first daughter. And then we had 2 more. So family, magic, then had to start traveling. And if I'm going to do that, then my mind was just starting to racing with like, okay, what do I really want? And I really just wanted to be with my kids. I didn't want to, we got some invitations, me and a performing partner, to go over to London, and it sounded great, but kind of like just being a road warrior and having a young family I had to make a choice. That's what it was. And I said, I just want to be with my kids and I'll figure out something else to do. And so still did some magic and started pursuing more of the corporate type environment because, there's definitely some, the International Brotherhood, Society of American Magicians, those are great. And they don't have an health insurance plan for children. So,
yeah, right.
I kind of had to make some choices, and that's kind of why I just made that shift and went into sales.
Okay. Yeah. I would think that, trying to start a family and being a magician, I mean, it'd be like trying to be any kind of entertainer, you want to be a rock star. Okay, great. Let's good luck. And, maybe you'll make it, but what do you do meanwhile if you have a wife and kids? So, yeah. So you went into sales, which is kind of that's a good segue for a magician, I would think.
Yeah, it was interesting because in college, I studied psychology and interpersonal influence. I studied that in order to make my magic better. But it turns out it translates very directly into sales as well. So when you know what people are thinking and you have something else you want them to think, if you know how they're thinking, then, and the tips and tricks and the triggers of the human mind, it's a pretty good avenue to take some of those skills and apply them. I can say it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's scary sometimes what magicians, how they can read people. I mean, I've watched them over the years. Yeah. They're consummate salespeople in some ways. So I read in your resume here too that you sold a lot of things, but mattresses were the most fun.
Yeah, I did a stint for, I think it was only about a year and change that I was selling mattresses, but nobody thinks about it. I mean, but mattresses are probably the single most intimate, large purchase you're going to buy. Like, you do more than just sleep on a mattress, and that comes up more often than you think in a mattress sale.
Oh, geez.
And I've had all sorts of conversations that I never would have expected to have. I got a quick story to tell you if you want,
Sure,
one.
sure.
So I was at, after a while, I had just started with the company, and then they moved me to like one of the bigger, more traffic stores, we'll say. And that was a store where they did some training. So there was only 2 guys per store typically, and I was one of the 2 guys at the store. But they actually had a training class where they were kind of training. And whenever a customer would come in, they would kind of stick around the back and peer around and see how the process was done and hear what they could hear. So I had a young lady come in who, I mean, I'm 5'10", 5'11" on a good day, and she was about a foot shorter than me. Just to give you some reference, she was this tiny little female and lovely person. We had a conversation, and she was looking for a certain type of bed and had certain requirements. So I'm going through my spiel, doing everything I was taught and doing the mattress test, lay down, test this. How does that feel? And so she's laying down on a bed, and I know that the people in the back are watching by now. So she's laying down, so they can see, but we're on the far side of the store. They can't hear.
Right.
And what she asks me to do is, would you mind kind of sitting on the bed? And okay, because I'm imagining, because she didn't tell me why, I'm imagining she wants to see what it's like if somebody gets on or off the bed, see if there's some
right.
dissipation of energy, right?
Right.
So I kind of just sit on the edge, and she goes, well, no, actually, could kind of plop down. And I'm like, sure. So I stand up and kind of plop my butt down on the bed a little bit. She's like, this is going to be weird, but do you mind if I ask? I'm like, what can, of course, how can I help? And she's like, can you literally get on the bed and put on all fours and kind of just like you're like walking around on bed on all fours?
Okay.
And I'm like, hey, all's fair in love, war, and sales. So I'm like, sure, whatever it takes. So I get up on the bed and I'm jumping around. And then, you know, we write up and everything. Well, we're sitting there, I'm writing her up. She decides to buy the mattress. So I'm talking like, I got to ask because you know they're watching us now, because she was aware as well. And she's like, oh, I have a St. Bernard and I just wanted to see what it would be like. And so like this whole experience, I was like, well, okay, you could have told me that up front. That would have made it a little bit funner for me. But then I told the story of the guys in the back and we all had a good laugh about it. But things like that really kind of made the experience a lot of fun.
Yeah, I could see a Saint Bernard. Why she? But I'm like, yeah, that's pretty.
Because they must have thought I was messing with them. Because I'm literally jumping up on the bed like a dog, and they're like, "Is this what we're supposed to do as new trainees?" They're like, "Are this every sale?" It was a lot of fun, like I said.
I wonder if she'd have said now bark, would
yeah. I probably would have done it. You know, just customers are always right.
Yeah. So, anyways, from that world, you ended up. How did you make the journey into coaching and a divorce coach and all that? How'd that go?
That's a great question. So, like I said, that was a training store, and so I had, even since high school, I was in the high school band, and I stayed behind for 3 years and helped train the drum line, and so I was always a fan of giving back and doing more. So, in high school and then through college, I was doing, teaching magic to whoever would listen. Then in sales, I would always find that I was gravitated towards the training aspect of it. And right after, so I was working at the training store. Then I went into solar for a bunch of years, which was great because I felt like I was actually giving back to the earth, not just, helping people do something good. But I was selling for not even 6 months and got moved into training and loved it. And that's what I realized that was kind of part of my calling, was to be able to help people do better at what they want to do. So I would have been training there, and throughout the whole time, I'm just trying to give back. And so through my divorce and my experience, the divorce wasn't so bad. It was the custody battle after, to be honest, but I realized it was all kind of connected. So, but I've been helping other folks, especially dads that were dealing with divorce, just kind of giving advice, opinions, and informally coaching. And so, excuse me. So having done that for a while, and then I was, the transition between a couple different solar companies are all kind of part of the bigger same one. And then, I was part of a pretty big team. I also realized I enjoy helping people. I enjoy making a difference, but I make a horrible employee. I just I don't take direction from others who don't have the same vision that I do as well. So, to strike out on my own and take the thing I've been doing on the side and make it a full-time thing. So I dabbled in a couple different arenas and settled like divorce coaching is really where I think I can make the most impact. I've been people on the side for a while, and now it's just my full-time focus. Just, here's the real rub is my highest spiritual vision is to end the karmic cycle of suffering. And, because things happen to everybody and it's how you deal with it. We've heard that 1,000 times. You can't control what happens, but you can control how you react. So when things happen in our world, what we're trained to do from childhood is how we're going to react. So I want to help train people to react in better, more worldly ways that can benefit them, the people around them, especially their children, because children don't learn anything but what their parents teach them. And so that's why I do it. I want to help dads, parents get a clarity around what's going on so that they pass on the good stuff to their kids and make the world a better place.
That sounds like a wonderful mission, a wonderful vision, and I salute you for that. So you call yourself is it an amicable divorce coach?
Well, I'm an amicable arbitrator for divorce. I work with a company that does amicable arbitration. And yeah, I think amicable is one of the most underused words in the divorce world, right? Like if people are or want to be amicable, you're not always going to be, but if you want to be, that really helps make things go smoothly, right? Like of course you're getting divorced for a reason, and as I think there's a comedian that said, no good marriage ever ended in divorce. So there's going to be some tension. But if you want to be amicable and try and make things work, then you can have that give and take. And I think that's one of the first steps at making things better for you and the surrounding community you find yourself in.
So how do you find your clients? I mean, do they find you? And then the follow-up question to that is, how do you determine if they want to be amicable or not?
Well, if for the divorce, I work with a company that specifically focuses on that. And they have a whole system in place for, people who understand the concept of getting divorced amicably, and they have a whole process. So that's what I do there. I don't really do the divorce outside of it yet. I mean, it's one of those things that we're always in talks about how to reach a broader market. So there's kind of a whole system for that. But as far as the others, word of mouth. And, it's one of those weird things that when you talk to a divorced man like yourself, like, a few people that are divorced, don't you?
Sure.
Like it's kind of one of those energetic things that people know and feel. And so, word of mouth, and I've got Facebook following and things like that. And even family and friends, when they know what I do, they go, somebody starts complaining about their divorce and the pain and the suffering. They're like, I know somebody, I got somebody for you. So, yeah. And I think I forgot the second part of the question. What was the second part?
How do you determine if they want to be amicable? I mean, I guess you sit down with them or something, right?
Yeah, that's the real interesting thing is people will say they want to be, but and for the most part, it's rare that they don't want to be. The trick isn't if they know it yet, it's whether or not they're aware that it's possible.
Okay.
Because, especially attorneys, and I love attorneys, and that there's plenty in my family, but they're trained specifically to be aggressive and controversial, and they're trained for, which makes sense because if you're in a battle of any type, you want to win. But the system has got to a point where it's made people unaware that there's a different and better way.
Yeah, I mean, I've known for some time that. At least in this part of the country, that we have arbitration, is what they call it, divorce arbitration, I guess, where you sit down with, I don't know if it's a master or what, but it's, a lot of times it is an attorney, paralegal kind of person, but they kind of specialize in arbitration. I think really what they do is they just probably do something with, it's more of the property settlement kind of stuff and custody and all that. So, yeah, I mean, I have a friend right now who's been going through for, I don't know, it's maybe a year now or something. Mm-hmm. And I just talked to him a couple of weeks ago and I said, what's going on? How's it going? He says, we're going to end up in court. He says, that's just, it's, she, he's like, she wants to fight. So, so it's like, that's why I asked, how can you get someone to recognize that, fighting and ending up in court is not usually the best way to handle a divorce, but wow.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. The data that shows that whenever there's a divorce, there's two completely different timelines. And because one person has been thinking about divorce a lot longer than it's been made aware to the other person. And so I think that the best way to figure that out is if you can catch them up close to the same timeline and you get the person who's now recently aware that a divorce is imminent to kind of look back and see that it's been going on. that opens that door to, oh, I never thought of it that way. Maybe I did have a different role than I like. That opens the door for amicability, if that's a word. But yeah. So that's one of the things that I tend to focus on and try and help people go, let's kind of step back, look at the bigger picture and see where this might have actually started rather than your awareness right now, because that can make a massive shift in their heart, right? That just makes somebody go, oh, I never thought of it X, Y, and Z wise. And that can really make a shift.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's make a shift here to what you do coaching wise.
Yeah.
So you said, you want to change the world basically. So how does your coaching program work? How do you find out who you really are?
How do you find out who you really are? Great question. And I love this question because there's something that I do that's a little bit different than every other system I've studied. I've studied mystery school stuff, and like with magic, I've gone in all sorts of directions over the years. And almost everything talks about having a goal. That's your first thing. Once you have a goal, then you move forward. The one thing I've learned is that step is, and I'm just going to call it, I think it's a bastardization of the current place we find ourselves in the country. Excuse me. And by that, I mean, if you don't know where you are, setting a goal becomes irrelevant, right? So most people bypass that first step and they get lost in the process, especially if you're going through a divorce. You're worried about, and if you have kids or the house and the money and all these other things, and you've got all these other voices coming in trying to tell you what you should do, what you ought to do, what you got to protect, you got to fight this way, you got to fight that way. Like there's just all this noise that comes in. And so you kind of forget who you are, what you are. So the very first thing I do with people is do what I call my reality check. Where are you at? Where do you want to be right now? Not your future goals, but right now. And when people get grounded in where they are, and this goes back to the thing about figuring out, oh, the reality is she's been divorcing me for 6 months and she just told me 1 month ago, or she's been out 3 years, right? Like that gives that whole new settling in a completely different place, emotionally, psychologically, sometimes physically. That now, once they have that foundation, then we look forward to, okay, well, where do you want to be? How do you want to be living in this world? How do you want to proceed through this? If you have kids, what do you want their experience to be? When I do the divorces, one of the phrases we use is, what's your optimal outcome? But it's really critical to do that first step first, like figure out where you are, then figure out where you want to go. And then we just create a blueprint, a map, a step-by-step plan to get from A to B. And it's easier once you have those 2 points. But if you don't have one of those points, you can't really get there. So
right. No, and I have a saying that kind of ties in with that. When it comes to motivational speakers, I always, I look at them sometimes and I say, and motivational speakers are fine, but there's nothing worse than motivating incompetence.
I love that.
I mean, you think about it, because it's sort of the same thing. If you don't know where you're going, if you really need to be competent first, so that then you can be motivated to get there and put in your whatever it is into gear that you want to do.
Right.
So what keeps you up at night these days?
What keeps him up at night? Well, recently, I'll tell you a little story. As of yesterday, that was the last day I got to watch TV. I made a deal with my girlfriend, and she said, okay, you were watching too much news, because there's been a few things going on in the news lately in the world. And so for her birthday, which was at end of last month, she said, all right, I want a month of no TV. And I'm like, okay, I can do that, but I've got my son and he's big into football. I'm like, can we at least watch the Super Bowl? She's like, all right, the rest of February. So the only thing that keeps me up at night is the massive divide we have in the country. Yeah. And to be honest, that's part of why I have my goal, right? Like if we had our truth, and we're allowed to disagree. I'm not saying everybody should agree, but how we approach it, I think, is the problem. And that's that cycle of karmic suffering that I really want to uncover, expose, and clear out, so people aren't acting out of fear and pain. They're acting out of love and harmony. And so, and I wouldn't say it really keeps me up at night, other than just how can I serve more, right? I just want to get my message out. I just want to take on the world in a positive, loving way.
So have you seen, with the pandemic, with COVID going on, have you seen any difference in the clients that you have in terms of how they're feeling? Or or have they expressed their feelings relative to the pandemic?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had a few clients that I've been working with that it's really interesting because the pandemic and there's, depending on how your mindset is set up, like if you've been doing mindset work and you're really strong in your mindset, this is a blessing. Now it sucks that so many people have, been suffering and hurting, but it gives people like us a chance to get out and do more and help more. Right.
Okay.
So there's people that I deal with that just have what we'll just simply call it a negative mindset. And they come in and it's the worst thing that happened to them. And the rules are bad and everything's bad. Government's bad, safety, and I kind of challenge those people and I talk to them like, so what can you not do that you were doing before? And they think whether it's restrictions or if it's their partner saying this or that, they're just manufacturing negativity on top of, it's a crap situation. Don't get me wrong, but there's still a lot of blessings in what we have, right? There's, less pollution in the air and there's more time to spend with your kids, more time to spend with your dog, more time to meet people on Zoom, right? There's 1,000 gratitudes we can find. But yeah, the pandemic has really hit people who haven't been doing this kind of work harder than I think those that have.
Interesting. Yeah, I was talking to someone just yesterday about it, and we were talking about the fact that there's so many people are depressed right now, and going through depression. My own mother, who's 92, she's very independent, still lives alone. I have a brother and a sister that live 5 minutes from her, but
nice.
But she has, she's a social person. She was used to going out, playing cards, got church group, doing this. I mean, she got out and about, so that was her. She's a social person. Well, that's all been taken away, and she's she's bored. She said is what she told me, and it's even more difficult for her because she's deaf, and she has a cochlear implant that used to work, but it doesn't work much anymore because she's just she's gone through about 3 of them. They just don't work anymore. So it's tough. It's difficult. She reads and she's got TV, with closed caption, but she's not happy with that at all. I can tell that. So my sister gets her out when we can, but it's tough. You don't want to take your 92-year-old mother out and, have her exposed to something that's, bad. So
for sure. I lived just down the street from my parents. I grew up in this neighborhood and I moved not too far from my parents, and we go see them on occasion, but we keep our distance. And to your point, my mom, we just dropped off some stuff at her house and we were leaving and we're like, okay, bye. I had my son with me and she just kind of she put her head in her hand. She's like, I just want a hug, right? Like all I just want to do is just give you guys a hug. And it kind of broke my heart. I'm like, we're like 6 feet away from you. Like, that's okay. But yeah, that does mean a lot. I think our generation above really were a lot more social in the physical context than the new generation. Like my son keeps in touch with all his friends and more because it's all through his phone or his video games. So he's not suffering like different generations were. But yeah, your point is really well taken there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's different all over the country too. Here we've had school closings and now some of them are open, some are closed, some are, and it's for the kids. That's difficult, especially with the younger kids where it's, 1 week you're in school, the next week you're not in school, or it changes, because it's been just a mess in terms, in my opinion, anyways, and how it's been handled. But and the kids have suffered from it, especially the ones who were the more social, types that they love seeing their friends. That whole generation, even my kids' generation, they're huggers. I mean,
that's true.
Yeah. So they're missing all that. So let me ask you this. I guess you've gone through a lot of different iterations in career-wise, and so who's been the most important person in your life? Who's influenced you the most?
Oh wow, I can only pick one. Wowzers. Well, I'll give you a kind of a sideways answer, and it's the comedian who passed away a bunch of years ago, Bill Hicks.
Okay.
Because early on, I loved him because he was funny and he was entertaining, and being an entertainment myself, it made sense. But he also had a logic to him. And I actually have his book, and for those on Zoom call with you, but I've got his book on my bookshelf, and it's called Love All the People. He has this thing that he talks about. And I remember this from, I think I heard it back when I was in high school, but he said, has this joke about, they always talk about women and children first. Well, we got to do it for the women and children. We got to you got to protect the children. And yeah, in a sense, like that's great. But then the joke is, well, what about the rest of us? Do we not also count? Right? Like, and his book is called Love All the People.
Gotcha.
And so reading it, like he towards the end of his career, he actually ended up having a really horrible case of cancer. But towards the end, he was kind of angry on stage because he wasn't able to get his message out. And there was just something, I don't know what the word is, maybe enigmatic about him, that what he was trying to do was greater than himself. And the medium was hilarious. He chose stand-up comedy to do it. But his message was always strong and potent, that we all have this ability to do things and we should never shirk it. And we should definitely just love all the people. And however you choose to do that, that's just what I think that should be the guiding light for all of us. So
that's a great message. Excellent message.
Yeah. I mean, I think he inspired me more than I realized over the years. And I just really like, but then again, I've got parents, I've got brothers, I've got my girlfriend, I've got my kids. They all inspire me. Like everything I do, I look at and I try and find gratitude. And I'll say this for those that are listening: if you struggle with that, the more you practice, the more gratitude flows to you. It becomes so easy to be grateful for everything and anything. So I don't have bad days. I just don't.
A very wise man once told me, very wealthy wise man, in fact, once told me, and I'll preface this by saying he was a very charitable person, gave tons and tons of money, a philanthropist type person to charities and stuff. But he always said, that gratitude is the most fleeting of emotions, in his opinion. That if you're looking for something, gratitude is what you're looking for, and you're doing something for that emotion, don't count on it, and don't count on it being around long, because people don't know how to practice gratitude, was his thing. But he did what he did for because it was the right thing to do, I think.
Yeah, that's I don't remember. It was one of my magic teachers early on taught me, like, be the kind of person that does the right thing when nobody's looking.
Yeah.
Put your grocery cart back, right? Help pick up a piece of trash, even though it's not yours, right? Like just do that. So that's something that's been ingrained in me for a long time. So I love that. It is fleeting, but it can be part of you if you practice it. So that's an interesting thought. I've never heard of it called fleeting before. That does resonate though. That's cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. He was an interesting guy. So Tank, there's a project that you might be interested in. It's called the Listen First Project.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to check it out. It's listenfirstproject.org, I believe, is the URL. I did a podcast with one of the people that founded it and still run it, and you were talking about the country being so divided right now, and so their goal is to heal America by bridging the divides that we have, and nice. The whole idea is that you listen, you listen to other people, and by listening first, we can kind of get by some of this division. They started off some of the early things. They're from I think they started like down on Mississippi and in the South. So they were dealing with racial issues, and they were also dealing with some of the things like the Confederate statues and all that stuff, in Mississippi, and the flag and all. And so they put people together, and they facilitate putting people together to listen. With the pandemic, it got difficult because they all had to be, virtual now.
Right.
But they get people in the same room, and on one side you've got people that no, the Confederate statues must stand there. They're for this reason. It's important. You got people on this side. No, it's racist, and it's terrible for us. And they make them listen to each other. And I say make, but they facilitate them. Yeah.
There you go. That's a great word.
They facilitate that listening, and they were able to make changes. Come to some understanding of what each other was thinking, and then come to a solution that didn't necessarily make either side perfectly happy, but at the same time made them happy as a group, and in one case they moved the one statue from where it was to a cemetery and put it, so that kind of thing. So,
Gotcha. I love that idea.
yeah, they're a real interesting group. It's the Listen First Project, and they have it's all nonprofit, that type of thing. I'll put it in the show notes, and so you can.
I'll definitely check that out. I've got a plaque in my kitchen, and it's something I've taught my kids, and I literally put it on a plaque so that it was ever present. It says, "Listen to understand, not respond."
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. No, that is, I mean, that's perfect. That's, I read a book called Listen First, Sell Later. I mean, that was the name of the book 20 years ago. They have a pledge, though. I love their pledge. I mean, your organization has a pledge. If you want to join the organization, you need to take this pledge. And I saw that. And I'm like, oh, well, what's this going to be? So I opened it up, and it's very simple. It says, I will listen first to understand.
Yeah.
And the pledge.
Pretty straightforward. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I've enjoyed being here with you today.
Well, I've really enjoyed being with you as well. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And good luck with your coaching. Good luck with changing the world.
Yeah, we're on the path. We're doing it.
Yeah. Mindful awareness. Is that a good term?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, that's a very good combination of words. I love that.
All right. Well, you have a great week and a great 2021.
Thanks. Same to you. Thanks, Bob.